Hello, everybody. Good morning and welcome to the fifth annual Global Conference. And we are now. Tim Romba is joining us for a very interesting presentation. He has several years. He has a very lots of experience in program management. He has collaborated in several industries, such as workspace, medical devices, etc., etc. And he has dedicated several years as well to study and seek the root cause for failure in projects. Today, he's talking about a very interesting topic, AI, artificial intelligence, and how to deploy that for a PM. In the session, at the end of the session, we will answer the questions you have. So on the right side of the screen, you have a menu. You can share your questions in the chat icon, or there's a Q&A icon as well. So please feel free to share your questions, and at the end of the session, we will have a few minutes for Tim to answer. So please, Tim, go ahead. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Oscar. I just want to do a double check because when I cannot see our video, can someone check to please confirm, can you see me and can you hear me? Yes, you can. Fantastic. Thank you very much. All right. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you're calling in from. Thank you all very much for joining. Time is short, so let's dive in. To set the tone, I want to promise you something, that this will be the most boring AI talk of this conference, because everything I am going to discuss will be extremely practical. Now, about me, super quick, over 2 decades in the aerospace industry, now about 13 years in med device, program management, and leadership. And for about the last 15 years, one of my passions is that I've been studying project failure. So, of course, a couple of years ago, like many of us, I began studying whether or not AI could bring a meaningful shift to our profession. And I began curating the most practical experiences and advice from those that have actually done many times now what we are all just now possibly just thinking about. So I'm here to share a summary of that advice that I've collected, because I'm actually a very firm believer in Amara's law, where we tend to overestimate the effect of a technology in the short run, and we underestimate the effect of that technology in the long run. And what you may be surprised about as I walk you through this agenda is how little this topic actually has to do with the technology itself. And I hope by the end you hear 2 clear messages. First, if you haven't already, start using it right now. Even if it's at home, even if you don't have access at work, start using any AI technology you can. And yet, in parallel, we need to acknowledge that you and your everything that you and your company must do before it can truly be effective at work. So before I start talking about AI, let's align on how to view the categories of AI and how they apply to project management. We all know the first one, which is Gen AI, but the key here is that everything we know about Gen AI is done primarily using what's referred to as unstructured data. Some very helpful capabilities, some really cool stuff, but despite how cool and convenient it all seems, I'm not convinced that this is the technology that's really going to move the needle for our profession. To achieve that, we need the next one, which is analytical AI. This is the real deal. This uses structured data, the kind of data that a lot of us possibly are already generating on our projects, where you may be trying to generate but haven't gotten there yet, or maybe we haven't even started. It's this technology that enables capabilities that just don't exist today. And once we've achieved that, we can then pursue agentic AI, which can use all types of data. It doesn't matter. It's the agents that apply our processes to take actions on our behalf. But there's another way of looking at this. You've probably heard of all three of those, but aren't really sure how they should apply to your daily work. So, another really interesting way to categorize AI is through the relationship we have with it. And there's an author and kind of an expert out there. His name is Ethan Mollick, and he describes those relationships in his book called Co-Intelligence. And I can't see your responses, but just think about each of these as I ask the question. So, how many of you treat AI as if it's a person? If I was standing in front of you, I'd be asking you to raise your hand. Or how many of you use it as a creative to actually help you through creative initiatives? How many of you have it currently as a coworker at work? Not just as a tool, as an actual, you're treating it almost as a person that you work with, or that maybe you would like to have as a coworker. How many of us use it as a tutor, right? As actually being able to teach us something new. And similarly, how many use it as a coach? I use it as a collaborator, a thought partner, which Ethan Mollick kind of sprinkles that in between a creative and a coworker. And lastly, how many of us are treating it as our future? So before we can actually just start discussing that future and how to prepare for AI, what I've seen is that it's absolutely essential that we adopt some key mindsets that are common amongst all of the experts that I follow. The first being people first. Success with AI will be built upon a people first strategy. Roles and technology may change around us. Maybe they already are for you, but we have these three core needs with or without AI. So, regarding AI, we can't yet trust it outright. That trust must be built over time, hence, starting to use it right now if you haven't already. Humans must be in the loop to verify, which also enables responsibility and accountability. Alignment determines whether its impact is going to be helpful or harmful. And clarity actually comes from our company, and I'm going to be discussing that in just a minute. And it's not just about today, it's about building tomorrow's leaders. You can't build tomorrow's leaders if they have no shoulders to stand on. We need to keep this people first. The next mindset is to simplify. Everything we do is already too complex. No matter your AI initiatives, I implore you intentionally and continually simplify. And this is actually much more difficult to do than making something complex. And nothing should ever be for the sake of just doing it. It must always be toward providing a value. Again, this relates to any other process or deliverable, and now it will to AI. And in case you're looking for it, so far in all of my studies, I have not yet found a definitive guide on the value of AI in any organization. It's pretty hit or miss so far. Because, and by the way, value does not have to be pre-planned, and it does not have to be massive. In fact, a lot of the examples, it can start very small. It can come from people's interactions with AI, and they find value through their curiosity and the way that they synthesize what may actually seem to be unrelated ideas and knowledge. And this is where you'll see that potential uses for AI have much less to do with AI than anyone currently realizes. And one of my favorite experts that I follow, her name is Sol Rashidi. She was the world's first chief AI officer many years ago, back in the IBM Watson days. And she has 5 recommendations to shift the focus when contemplating AI for work. Understand the why. What is the desired outcome you seek? Just like any project, just like any effort. Define the problems. Remember, Steve Jobs, probably most of you probably remember Steve Jobs saying, if you define the problem correctly, you almost have the solution. This is a huge one. Consider traditional solutions first. You may already have the solution. They might be faster, cheaper, and more reliable. Next, if the problem does seem AI suitable, seek help from those that have already done it. Believe me, they probably just achieved what you're trying to achieve, and they're going to be willing to help. And lastly, be brutally realistic about your organization's maturity. You simply may not be ready for it yet. And that brings me to 2 primary warnings. The first one is my own. If you are considering giving some work to an AI, you need to understand whether that work is actually essential to learning how to be a project manager and building that foundational project management knowledge. If that's the case, we should not replace it, even if the AI can do it. And this is best catalyzed by a related warning: knowledge without understanding. And the best way I could describe this is through 3 really cool quotes. Gentleman on LinkedIn, Yoshio Goto, said, AI democratized the feeling of knowing without the burden of understanding. But don't worry, reality will provide feedback shortly. And then again, Sol Rashidi, she even trademarked a term for this condition: intellectual atrophy, such as students using AI to write an essay, thereby never developing their own voice or storytelling skills, or developers using it for convenience to write code without actually understanding the logic behind it. And lastly, Tim Ferriss addresses this in the same thing, but from a slightly different angle. Real work and real satisfaction come from the going deep into something and staying there for a long, long time. You can't achieve that knowledge if you don't have that understanding, which means for those things that require that depth, AI may not be the answer. So, with those mindsets and warnings, now we can actually prepare. And for AI, you don't just need to plan, you need to prepare. And every AI equation starts and ends with your company. First is their responsibility to provide a solid framework of transparency, accountability, and human oversight. Then you have to have a culture of innovation, willing to pursue AI, knowing that our future workplace will likely depend on it. You need a business strategy. Possibly your companies have wonderful strategies, but those strategies actually have to enable the application of AI as part of the effort to achieve that strategy. And then you need a system to enable the implementation of AI. Your IT team must be a partner. However, all the usual ways your organization normally tries to respond to new technologies, it's not going to work or isn't working well for AI. They're too centralized and just too slow. You're going to need a new approach. And if you or your company are not good at change management, you better get good or hire someone that is. In fact, I would go as far as saying you might as well just kind of pause your AI preparation and get really good at this. And then be patient and prepare others to be patient, because no one is an expert at this yet. And yet, despite that, in parallel, start using it. Nearly all of the advice that I read recommends just use it. Are you getting that message? It's actually part of the prep. Learn as much as you can. And some of the best benefits will likely be unplanned just from the discovery of using it. So, what do project managers need to do to prepare? And no, I'm not going to read through all of these. No matter your years of experience or confidence level, you need to prepare for AI. It is certain that your job will overlap. I am not convinced jobs will be taken, but your job will overlap with AI capabilities in some way. But I truly believe that it'll be tasks that will change, not the entire job. And if you're uncertain about anything on the screen, I highly recommend that you start doing your homework. Invite AI into everything you do. Because if you don't, there will come a time when those that do have these skills will become more valuable than you. And tell your teams this. Now, for leaders, you got it easy. Again, from Saul Rashidi, two key leadership qualities. The first one, discernment. When AI is very good, humans have less reason to work hard and to even pay attention. So, discernment is knowing when that AI output needs extra validation before you actually run with it. Discernment will separate leaders who leverage AI from those that depend on it. And second, you've all heard it a million times, critical thinking. AI is not here to abandon our judgment. Your ability to comprehend, assess, and provide strategic direction, that's irreplaceable. And we need to understand that when given access to general purpose technologies like AI, because people will figure out ways to use it to make their jobs easier. So it's up to leaders to ensure we don't outsource our critical thinking to AI. And Saul summed it up saying, in the post AI world, your role as a leader isn't to compete, it's to teach your team when to trust it, when to question it, and when to override it entirely. What she's saying is the question isn't whether AI will disrupt your industry, it's whether you will shape that disruption or be shaped by it. And that's just a matter of your preparation. So we therefore need to be conscious about the actual tasks that we give to AI so as to take advantage of its strengths and our weaknesses. So this is again Ethan Mollick, and he really describes it wonderfully in just three types of tasks. First is the just me tasks, things that AI definitely cannot or should not do because they are uniquely human. Then come the delegated tasks, stuff that you really don't want to do, low importance, time consuming, tedious, repetitive, boring, but it still requires humans to carefully check the results. And then hopefully a number of us will be able to find automated tasks, stuff that you can push completely to AI and you don't even need to check it. Fully automated, reliable, and scalable without our intervention. And the best way to identify those different types of tasks is to understand every process. Remember, in saying this, having already said we must maintain a people first strategy. Every single thing done on a project is a process, regardless of whether it's documented. So, to understand how we might apply AI to projects, we have to understand each element of our processes and how people interact with them. I'm not saying enforce strict compliance to every process. I'm saying understand them. And to understand them means to lay them out, evaluate them, understand the current state, envision the future state, and the actions needed toward that future state. If you don't understand the processes that run your company, you will not be able to understand how AI can help you. It's only as good as the process to which it is applied. And without that proper groundwork, automation of a process with AI often amplifies its flaws instead of fixing them. And one of my favorite methods, I've got the link here, you can go look it up, is for doing this is called Process Evolution Framework from Jeff Winter. It's a step-by-step approach. I'm going to show you that in a second. That really helps. It's kind of a mindset that helps businesses ensure their processes are faster and better before ever applying AI. To be honest, it's stuff that we should be doing anyway, regardless of whether or not we have AI yet. And I love the hard truth that Jeff Winter shares. He says turning paper into pixels doesn't make the process smarter. Some deserve an upgrade, others deserve a funeral. And I'm guessing some of you are thinking about some of your own processes that deserve a funeral. So let's quickly run through his framework. First is to understand. I already mentioned that, deeply analyzing the workflow, its inefficiencies, its bottlenecks, and the opportunities for improvement. Not just identifying problems, but also what works well. Once we understand each process that we own, we can move into standardize. We need to ensure consistency and reliability by creating that repeatable process that reduces variability. This establishes the baseline that enables scalability and prepares the process for the next steps, which are begin with optimize, refining that process to maximize its efficiency and effectiveness. Many of you are probably already working on that, removing waste, streamlining. My opinion is, and this is what we're doing at our work, you should not be considering implementing AI until you've completed at least these three steps for every process that you own. Because from there, now you can digitize, converting workflows into digital systems, enabling easier data storage, retrieval, and sharing. This enhances visibility and lays the foundation for automation, using technology to execute repetitive tasks, reducing that manual effort and actually freeing us up for higher value work that is human only. This step builds on the digitized process, taking efficiency to that next level by eliminating, the routine human intervention. And finally, there's an element of this integrate that you can sprinkle through this, but it's then connecting all of those automated processes with other systems, with other workflows, and across other teams. This begins to create that whole interconnected ecosystem. Now, I can imagine what you're thinking, but wait, when I'm doing all of this, don't I also need to understand what data all of these processes will be generating and using? That's a great question. How about I address that? Because the next element is data. We've gone through all of that work. We understand the processes. We're done preparing, right? Well, we can really need to implement AI. Nope. We need to first address our data management. We've all heard garbage in, garbage out. And when it comes to AI, you simply can't implement it to analyze your data without first having turned that garbage into a pristine palace of divine data. And let me say it a different way. You can use AI at work in many ways that don't involve data, maybe as a creative, as a collaborator, as a coworker. That's the stuff you should be doing as soon as possible, if not right now. But if you want to analyze your project performance data, just stop talking about AI and start building your data architecture, your data governance, and your data management. So, where do we start? It's right here. This is from my favorite PM AI hero, Paul Boudreau. I've got the book right there that he wrote. And let me run you through his top 10 common data standards. And you think about how these can apply to your company. First, your data has got to be clean. This is a massive obstacle for many of us. Consistent formats, consistent dates, date formats, money, languages, words versus abbreviations or acronyms. Think about this, the name for the same task across every project has to be the same. And that's for all data going backward and forward. So if you're training on historical data, it all has to be cleaned to look the same way that your future data will look. The data's got to be enough. How much data is enough? It depends on your needs. Is it starting from today, or are you adding that historical data? If so, how far back do you need to go? And then the data has to be accessible. You should not be assuming that it's automatically accessible. Where is the data? Is it in one common repository? Is it dispersed over numerous tools, possibly numerous organizations? And will the owners of that data be willing to share it, especially for training in AI? And the data's got to be relevant. This is my biggie. Is the data of the last few years of your projects worthy of being compared to the data to be gathered over the next few years? You don't need AI to only look backward or forward. We need it to compare the two, to synthesize, and then to tell a story. So the data the AI is analyzing from the past must be relevant to the data in your future. If you go and improve a process, the data from that old process is no longer relevant. And then relevancy also applies when trying to compare like projects. Next, the data's got to be correlated. In project management, we have a myriad of data types within each project and across projects. Tasks, dates, budget, expense, actions, risks, team members, equipment, functions, phases. I mean, literally, it just keeps going and going. Each data type must not only be correlated at the source, but the AI must be trained to understand how each of them are correlated. The data has to be conclusive. It's one thing to actually have data, but does it speak to whether its project was successful? Why do I care to compare to a project that wasn't successful? And what is your definition of successful? It must be seen in the data. Next, it's got to be complete. Do we have all of the data needed to act on it? What data is required for it to be usable? Only internal, or is there external data also required? And by the way, is that external data public, or must it be procured? And if you procuring it, it still has to meet all of this criteria. The big one started with this, it's got to be trusted. Are the data, the use of that data by an AI tool and its resulting insights trusted for its intended use? You need to align this with your culture and with your stakeholders. Are we at the point that we trust it? It's got to be secure. Absolutely. Let IT go figure that out. And most importantly, it's got to be managed. Who will manage this new data and how will they do it? And now, to manage all that project performance data, are you leaving it to IT, or is that a new responsibility of your PMO? And by the way, this is forever, which means it's going to require new people and new money. So what can we actually do to get our house in order to prepare for any of the new data types of data? Well, as prescribed by Sol Rashidi, the following are preconditional, not nice to have. They are preconditional foundations, regardless of whether you implement AI to analyze it. And I apologize, I don't have the time right now, but you guys will have access to all of this later. The first is a strong data governance framework. And you'll get the slides. So I'm just going to move on to the next one. You can look at these at your leisure. The next is a strong data pipeline. I'll give my example. Despite my company being in business for 20 years, we have no single source for project performance data. It's spread out over 25 PMOs, numerous applications, and non-integrated systems. We're now implementing a PPM tool just within my one PMO. That is a massive change management effort for everyone that touches it, but especially for new data, for all the new data it's generating. And all that old data that we already have, it's essentially going to be inaccessible because unless we decide to manually enter it. Next is proactive data management. This is what we're currently living, and please trust me, it's going to require new headcount, quite possibly within your PMO. The data quality standards, those are those that I actually just listed off, the 10 data standards. And this is not a situation where you just get to claim success when you first launch. It is ongoing forever. As long as you need this, you've got to have a data and AI maturity model. And finally, let's see if any of these signs actually fit your situation. Disconnected data silos, doing AI for the sake of doing AI, no data ownership, or perhaps haven't even thought about the role people will actually serve. So real quickly, getting into actions, we've done the preparation, so what can we start doing? The first is from Jeremy Utley. He's the professor of AI and design thinking at Stanford's D School. He's got this really cool 101, 201, 301 progression. The first one is value capture, real simple. That's today's work taking less time. The second, if you've achieved that, we can take on systematic efficiency. This is where we actually realize that an AI assist can accomplish something we could never have accomplished before. And lastly, um, is the taking that systematic efficiency and actually making it the norm at scale, even to the point Jeremy has these awesome examples of solving a problem that your entire industry thought was unsolvable. But that's still at a pretty high level. So having decomposed your workflows into individual tasks, you now have everything that's necessary, all the insight into where AI can be applied and how. And the goal of AI has always been to outsource tasks, not the creativity, ingenuity, and problem solving. So just be careful. You want to be able to apply it to the dull, the difficult, the dirty, and the dangerous. Hopefully, some of us aren't dealing with tasks that are dirty or dangerous, but perhaps you actually are. These are perfect examples for, of course, AI and robotics. But my favorite recommendation is start with personal pain points. This is again from Jeremy Utley, and he even created this awesome commitment architecture, which is based on a share to learn loop. And that loop starts with creating a commitment to share. It's this courage to start trying out AI and share literally prematurely. Share your results and just no matter how small they are, because people must be able to experiment, which means two things. Your company has provided you that environment, and then you have the willingness to do it. And get into the rhythm of this sharing, because when you do, experiments start increasing and improving, and sharing becomes that much easier. And then your commitments actually begin to strengthen. All of this builds that muscle in being able to trust AI. And by the way, just some key information. Uh, First of all, this is going to cost some money. You've got to secure the investment. You need to update your techniques. All of your ways of working are going to completely change, hence the need for really stellar change management. You also need to optimize your infrastructure. The IT infrastructure is going to have to probably be updated. You've got to be prepared to train and upskill everyone that is going to be using AI. And lastly, you've got to have the systems in place to monitor all of the AI performance. You might even get to the point of realizing you're going to have to go back through some of these loops. So perhaps I should have started by calling this Start Using AI and Get Your House in Order. It sounds daunting, I know, but we should really be looking at this as inevitable. Start using it wherever you're allowed. Prepare for your data management. Enable your company. We can be the ones to enable the company to implement AI for the right reasons. So I've got here a few resources. I'm just going to leave these for you, all the references that I made and some additional ones that I follow on this topic. So thank you very much. And I would be glad to take any questions that happen to be posted.
Thank you very much. And I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
It's what would be your advice how to deal with the gap between regulations, internal or government regulations, and when implementing or using AI? Because AI will advance faster than any government or a company regulation. So what would be your advice how to deal with that with this gap?
The simplicity that we're using is what I mentioned, keeping people in the loop. You can start figuring out where AI can start either providing convenience or even to the point of analyzing data, but we cannot yet trust it to the point of just simply turning things over and assuming that the result is as good as what a human would have generated. So you've got to have the human in there to validate those results, all of which then can be used to ensure that there's compliance with those regulations that we're already having to follow.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Uh, I guess that's it. We don't have any other question for now. So thank you very much, Tim. It was very, very interesting. It's a very interesting subject. And thanks for sharing this presentation with us this morning.
Absolutely. If anybody has any questions later at any time, I'd be glad to connect with you on LinkedIn, and feel free to ask questions at any time. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much.
All right. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Enjoy the conference.
Thank you. Bye.